Some people don't just cross a line. They sprint over it, torch it behind them, and smile while doing it. I thought I had seen petty office politics before, until a coworker tried to frame my senior developer for racism just to take me down with him. The moment I learned the truth, something inside me snapped, and I promised myself this. Someone was going to fall. Hard. I always say the early 2010s were a strange, electric time for internet companies in the UK. Everyone was expanding. Everything was fast-paced. And egos? Those were growing even faster. So when I got recruited to help build a brand new web development team for a major online company, it felt like stepping into a career-defining opportunity. New office, new subdivision, London energy, I was all in. The interview itself went smoothly, almost too smoothly. The office manager and the SEO team lead, who I'll call Andy, sat across from me asking the usual technical questions. Every time Andy asked, "Can you do X? Or would it be possible to do Y?" I gave honest answers. Yes, of course. Or, actually, you get a far better result doing A, B, or C. I wasn't trying to show off. I was just being a professional. But while the office manager nodded with confidence, Andy sat there with the stiff, twitchy smile of someone who expected a yes man and suddenly realized he wasn't getting one. Still, I got hired. And the first year was a blur of momentum. Late nights, caffeine-fueled brainstorming sessions, and building a development team from scratch. My portfolio of sites needed complete redesign and redevelopment. It was chaotic, messy, exciting. And then, the red flags started showing. Andy would stroll over to my desk, hands clasped behind his back like he was some kind of office general, and say things like, "Hey, I need you to structure this section the way I want. It supports my SEO layout." Or, "You used the wrong approach here. You need to follow my guidelines." Except his guidelines made no sense. They were outdated, inefficient, or straight up wrong. I'd explain why my method was better. Factually, politely, professionally. And every time I refused a bend, he'd storm off like a toddler denied a toy, then march straight to the office manager to complain. It became a pattern. Andy orders. I refuse. He sulks and tattles. The best part? Every time the office manager asked me for my side, he agreed with me. Because, shocker, I was the actual development lead, not Andy. It took me months to figure out the truth. Andy thought I'd be his personal button pusher. He thought he'd be able to say, "Jump," and I'd ask, "How high?" Nope, wrong guy. But even with all that tension, I genuinely enjoyed my team. Especially my senior developer. Let's call him Johnny. Brilliant guy. Calm. Level-headed. A problem-solving machine. The kind of developer who could rewrite an entire feature overnight if needed. And one night, he did. We had 2 major websites that were about to be showcased to the company's board. Serious project. Huge expectations. I traveled up to the head office, checked into the hotel across the street, and began my final test around 4 p.m. At first, everything looked clean, functionality sharp, UI polished, performance solid. Then the impossible happened. A critical bug. A catastrophic, website-breaking, functionality-wrecking monster of a bug we somehow missed. Johnny and I got on the phone instantly. "What do you think?" he asked. "We fix it tonight," I said. "We have to." He stayed in the London office. I stayed in my hotel room. 2 laptops, endless coffee, and 1 all-night coding marathon later, we solved it. At 7 a.m., 3 hours before I was supposed to present the sites to the board. I showered. I looked like death. But the CEO, genuinely a good man, noticed the exhaustion instantly. "Are you all right?" he asked. I explained. He was stunned and impressed. The meeting went beautifully. Everyone loved the new websites. The CEO later pulled me aside and thanked me personally, insisting I go home and sleep. Long train ride back, another hour to get home, but I didn't care. My team delivered. We earned that win. Naturally, I treated my team to a celebratory lunch. We deserved it. The office manager later arranged a whole office night out for Friday. Drinks, music, typical celebration. I'm not much of a fancy bar guy. Give me a pub and a cheap pint any day, but I went along. After a bit, I left early so I could catch my train home. Simple night. Relaxed. No drama. Or so I thought. Monday morning, I walked into the office, and something was wrong. HR was there. People from head office were there. The office manager looked tense. No one knew what was happening, until all team leaders were suddenly summoned. 5 of us squeezed into a room meant for 2. HR explained with grave seriousness. There's been a complaint. Someone from the SEO team reported that Johnny made racist comments during the office night out. My stomach dropped. Johnny, I said immediately. No, absolutely not. Emma, the content team lead and one of the most grounded people I know, looked equally shocked. Andy, however, he sat there with arms folded like a king awaiting execution day. HR spent the whole day interviewing everyone who was at the club. By late afternoon, we reconvened. And guess what? No one heard anything. Not one person could confirm the accusation. So it was simply one man's word, Mark from the SEO team, against Johnny's. You could see the relief on Johnny's face. But then, Andy exploded. This is unacceptable, he snapped. We cannot have someone like that in the office. He needs to be fired immediately. Emma and I exchanged a look. Why was he so desperate? So aggressive? So invested in getting Johnny fired? It didn't sit right. With no evidence, HR and the office manager gave Johnny a warning and told him to be mindful of how comments could be misinterpreted in the future. Johnny accepted it, though he looked shaken. But me? Something gnawed at my gut. And 2 months later, the truth hit me like a punch to the chest. A content team member pulled me aside and said quietly, "There's something you need to know." He had overheard Andy and Mark talking outside the club that night. And the racism complaint? A setup, completely faked, designed to get Johnny fired. So Andy could then argue that I was unfit to lead. I felt heat rising inside me. Fury, disgust, betrayal, not just on my own behalf, but on Johnny's. Someone had tried to destroy my developer's reputation, his integrity, just to hurt me. And in that moment, something inside me hardened. I wasn't letting this slide. But revenge required patience. And I had plenty. I didn't sleep that night, not even for a second. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every memory of Andy and Mark. Every conversation, every sideways look, every moment Andy had tried to undermine me. And now this. A planned, calculated attack. A fake racism accusation. A direct hit aimed at Johnny, but meant to cripple me. It wasn't just office politics anymore. This was character assassination. This was someone trying to ruin a man's livelihood just to win a petty power struggle. I kept imagining what would have happened if HR had been less thorough. If someone had lied. If the wrong person had backed Mark up, Johnny could have been fired, branded, labeled forever. And all because Andy couldn't handle someone telling him no. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't angry anymore. I was something sharper, colder, more patient. I knew I couldn't rush into anything. Revenge done wrong can backfire. Revenge done right? It's a masterpiece. So I decided to wait, watch, calculate. For weeks, I kept my distance. But every now and then I'd catch Andy looking at me, usually with that smug expression of his. That little smirk he wore whenever he thought he'd gotten the upper hand. And Mark? He acted like nothing had happened. Chipper, friendly, fake. The kind of guy who asks how your weekend was while hiding a knife behind his back. I avoided confrontation because I wanted them comfortable, wanted them thinking they'd gotten away with it. But something was shifting. Their workload started slipping. SEO deadlines were missed. Projects left half done. Tasks ignored. And he spent more time complaining than working. Mark spent more time on his phone than doing anything remotely productive. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I knew that eventually the universe gives you something. And then one afternoon it did. It was almost poetic how it happened. I stepped out into the stairwell for a cigarette break, something I did occasionally just to decompress. The stairwell door closed behind me with a soft clunk, and as soon as I turned the corner, I saw him. Mark. He froze when he saw me, eyes wide, face pale, like a kid caught stealing from a cookie jar. And he was mid-phone call. Normally I'd nod and walk past, but something about his panic made me slow down, made me pay attention. He couldn't hang up, couldn't suddenly stop talking. That would look suspicious. So he kept going, and I listened. The conversation wasn't normal office stuff. It wasn't about his job or tasks or the project he never finished. It sounded like a school, a course application, something about enrollment. And about the visa requirements. Yes, I understand, but do you process applications quickly? I walked past him slowly, pretending not to listen. But inside my head, gears slammed into place. Visa, enrollment, course applications. Something wasn't adding up. A few minutes later, back at my desk, the realization started to form. Slowly at first, then fast. Very fast. I'd heard about these fake colleges in London before. One of those late-night documentaries about immigration scams and sham student visa mills. Offices barely bigger than closets. Courses that didn't exist. Places where you pay a fee to get paperwork that lets you stay in the UK. And suddenly, Mark's panic phone call made perfect sense. I didn't act immediately. I didn't tell Johnny. I didn't even tell Emma. Not yet. Because if this was going where I thought it was going, then I wasn't just holding a weapon. I was holding a nuclear option. Over the next few days, Mark seemed jittery, nervous, distracted. He kept stepping outside to take phone calls. His productivity, already terrible, plummeted even further. Meanwhile, Andy grew even more irritable, more controlling, more hostile during cross-team meetings. Whenever the office manager wasn't around, he'd take little jabs at me. You know, some team leads don't let things slip through the cracks. I don't know how some teams operate with such looseness. Real leadership means being accountable. Every time he said something like that, I kept my face calm, neutral, unbothered, even when my jaw tightened. But inside I was smiling. Because men like Andy only have power when you react. When you show anger, when you crumble. I showed him nothing, and that drove him crazy. At night, though, the weight of everything hit harder. The injustice. The fact that Johnny still walked with this invisible stain on his record because of their lie. There were times I'd wake up at 3 a.m. thinking about it. Heart pounding, palms sweaty, unable to fully settle. I knew I needed to act soon, but timing was everything. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. I had to travel back up to head office for a meeting. By that point, we also had a new office manager, someone based more permanently at head office, occasionally dropping by the London branch, but mostly accessible up north. When I arrived, I checked into my usual hotel, dropped my bag, and made my way to the office. After the meeting, I approached the new office manager and asked if we could speak privately. Yeah, of course, he said. What's up? I closed the door behind us and kept my voice low. I overheard something the other day. Something about Mark. Visa issues. Course applications. It didn't sound right. I thought the company might want to look into it. The office manager raised an eyebrow. You think he might not be legally allowed to work here? I think, I said carefully, that it's worth confirming. His expression shifted. Professional. Serious. Concerned. I'll look into it, he said. I thanked him and left the room. Now all I could do was wait. 1 week passed. Nothing. 2 weeks. Still nothing. I started wondering if maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe Mark had everything handled, and then the explosion. Mark stopped showing up. No call. No email. No explanation. He was just gone. The office buzzed with rumor within hours. And by the next day, we got our answer. Mark had been fired. Immediately. He was working in the UK illegally. His visa tied to his wife's student visa had expired. His attempts to enroll in a college were a desperate attempt to remain. And the company? They weren't interested in sponsoring him. Not after discovering discrepancies. Not after realizing he wasn't truthful. He was escorted out. Just like that. A disappearing act. The next day, someone from SEO whispered to me. He had to go back to Dubai. Him and his wife couldn't afford the fake college fees. I'm not proud to say this, but I didn't feel bad. Not even for a second. This was the man who tried to destroy Johnny's life. This was the man who lied to HR without hesitation. This was the man who tried to sabotage my career. And he paid the price for his choices. The next morning, I pulled Johnny aside. We need to talk. When I told him everything, every detail, every plan Andy and Mark had made, he was stunned. Mouth open, hands shaking slightly. They did that to me. To us. I corrected. And I'm sorry you were caught in the crossfire. Johnny shook his head. No, you protected me. You didn't let them win. He wasn't angry. He wasn't vengeful. He was grateful. But me? I wasn't done yet. Because Andy was still here. Still smirking. Still trying to undermine me. And Mark's downfall had barely scratched the surface of what he deserved. No, the real revenge was still coming. And I was going to deliver it personally. Mark's fall should have been the wake-up call. A flashing neon warning sign telling Andy to stop while he was ahead. But men like Andy don't learn. They don't self-reflect. They don't pause and think, maybe I've gone too far. No, they double down. They dig deeper. And in doing so, they bury themselves. After Mark's sudden disappearance, the office had a strange energy. Faint whispers, quiet gossip, people piecing the story together without ever saying it aloud. Everyone knew something happened, something serious, but HR kept the details locked tight. Andy pretended to be unbothered, pretended it was business as usual, pretended his right-hand man hadn't just been fired in disgrace. But underneath that facade, he was rattled. I could tell by the way he avoided eye contact, by how quickly he shut down conversations, by how he kept glancing over his shoulder during meetings like he expected someone to confront him. And he wasn't wrong to be paranoid, because I wasn't done watching him. I didn't change my behavior toward Andy, not outwardly. The last thing I wanted was to tip him off that I knew everything. So I acted normal, cordial, civil, and that terrified him more than anger ever could. He'd walk into a meeting room and freeze the moment he saw me sitting at the table. He'd adjust his collar, clear his throat, shuffle his papers. His hands shook sometimes when he clicked through his presentation slides. The guilt was eating him alive. It was glorious. Meanwhile, Johnny was back to normal. Well, almost. The warning HR had given him still weighed heavily on him, but knowing the truth made it easier to breathe. He threw himself into work again, producing some of the best code I'd seen him write. One day during lunch, he said quietly, "You didn't have to do that." "I didn't do anything," I replied. "You didn't retaliate. Not in a way that hurt me or the team. You waited. You handled it." I shrugged. Sometimes the fire burns itself. He chuckled. "Still, thank you." But even as things stabilized for my team, Andy's behavior grew more unstable. He became nitpicky, hostile, and moody. He micromanaged everyone. The SEO team hated him, but feared him too much to speak up. He simmered with resentment. And I knew exactly why. He didn't know how Mark got caught. He didn't know if HR had investigated him too. He didn't know how much I knew. That uncertainty? It was its own slow torture. But I hadn't taken my revenge yet. Not the real revenge. Not the one that would break him completely. Sometimes revenge requires planning. Sometimes, the universe hands you a gift. It was a Thursday afternoon, and I was reviewing a new structure proposal for a major project we were about to begin. My team was ready. The content team was ready. The SEO team, barely hanging on. Andy had spent the week trying to assert control, rewriting guidelines, issuing demands, and insisting on changes that made no logical sense. Meetings turned into arguments, emails into essays. He was suffocating the workflow. The office manager had already spoken to him twice about his aggressive behavior. And then it happened again. Andy barged into my office unannounced. He threw a document onto my desk and snapped. "You need to change the development layout to match this." I picked up the document. It was a redesign, one that ignored every best practice, every guideline, every principle of the site structure. "I'm not implementing this," I said calmly. "You don't have a choice," he fired back. "SEO has priority on this project. We need this done our way." I took a slow breath. "Andy, this layout will break the site structure. It's not compliant with the design framework, and it contradicts what we agreed with the board." He leaned in, eyes narrowing. "You think you're in charge, but you're not. You're just a developer. I can have you removed from this project if you don't cooperate." There it was, the threat, the same tactic he tried before. But this time I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't react at all. I simply stood up, picked up the document, walked past him, and headed straight toward the office manager's door. Andy followed behind me, practically spitting fire. When we reached the office manager, I handed him the document. Andy wants to restructure the entire framework. It will break the site and delay delivery by weeks. Andy immediately launched into his rant. "This is unacceptable. Development refuses to follow SEO guidelines. His team is undermining us." The office manager held up a hand. "Andy, stop." Andy froze, stunned. No one had ever shut him down so quickly. Then the office manager turned to me. "I'll review the document. Thank you for bringing it to me." He nodded. "You can go." I left, and as I walked away, I heard the office manager say, "We need to talk about your behavior." A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't the revenge I planned, but it might be the start of something much bigger. Over the next few days, HR quietly revisited the team leads. Not about the old racism complaint, but about Andy, his behavior, his management style, his interactions with other departments. People opened up. People talked. People were honest. Emma mentioned his hostility. Content writers complained about his tone. Members of SEO confessed they were afraid of him. Turns out, Andy wasn't just a bully with me. He was a bully to everyone. Then HR met with me. The questions were gentle, careful, but revealing. How has Andy treated your team? Has he ever undermined your authority? Has he tried to interfere in development decisions? Have there been conflicts? I kept my answers factual, calm, professional, because the greatest power you can have in an investigation is credibility. I didn't mention the fake accusation. Not yet. I knew that card needed to be saved for the exact right moment. And then, just as the tension reached its peak, a new project deadline loomed. A high-stakes one. All departments needed to work flawlessly together. But Andy? He crumbled. He delivered incomplete SEO documentation. He missed submission deadlines. He updated metadata incorrectly. He even sent a file with the wrong client name. The office manager was furious. HR took notes. And the board? They wanted answers. I stayed silent. Watched. Waited. Because now Andy wasn't just a problem for me. He was a problem for the entire company. And when a company decides someone is a problem, their fall is inevitable. It happened late on a Wednesday. The office was quiet. People had gone home. Only a few team leads remained, tying up loose ends. I was packing my bag when Andy walked in. He closed the door behind him. His face was flushed, eyes wild, voice tense. "What did you tell them?" he hissed. I slowly set my bag down. "What are you talking about?" "HR. The office manager. Everyone. They're all suddenly watching me, asking questions. Someone said things about me." I raised an eyebrow. "That's between you and them." He stepped closer. "Don't play games with me. Mark told me you always hated us, that you were trying to get rid of us." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Mark isn't here anymore, is he?" That landed like a punch. He swallowed hard. "You think you're clever. You think you can embarrass me. You think you can turn everyone against me." I leaned back in my chair. "I didn't need to turn anyone. You did that yourself." He trembled with rage. "You'll regret this." I stood up slowly, walked past him, and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "I know what you did, and I'm not forgetting." He froze, completely still. For the first time, he realized someone knew, and I saw the exact moment when fear took over his entire body. That was the turning point. That was when he understood the truth. He wasn't the hunter anymore. He was prey. Andy unraveled over the next few weeks. Missed work, came in late, left early, couldn't focus, jumped at every shadow, until one Friday morning, he handed in his notice. No woodvie, no explanations, no eye contact. He left the office quietly, packed his things, and walked out the door, never to return, never to resurface in the industry. Silent, defeated, erased. The revenge was complete. But the story wasn't over. Not yet, because the aftermath, the reflection, the weight of what happened, that part stays with you. When Andy walked out of the office for the last time, carrying his half-empty cardboard box, the entire building seemed to exhale. The tension that had seeped into every room, every meeting, every conversation, it all dissolved. But for me, it wasn't instant relief. It was something slower, heavier, strangely quieter than I expected. You'd think that finally winning, finally defeating the man who tried to sabotage my career, finally exposing the truth behind his lies would feel triumphant. Euphoric, explosive, but vengeance, when it's real, not fictional, not hypothetical, comes with weight. Not guilt, never guilt, but weight. Because even after Andy disappeared, the ghost of what he'd done lingered. The risk he'd taken with Johnny's career, the fabricated accusation, the months of hostility, the quiet plotting, and worst of all, how easily he could have succeeded if even one thing had gone differently. That thought haunted me for weeks. The change was immediate. The SEO team, freed from Andy's chokehold, blossomed. They became engaged, collaborative, willing to work with development and content rather than barking orders. The office manager noticed. HR noticed. Even the CEO, when he visited a few weeks later, noticed. "I heard things have improved dramatically here," he said during a team meeting. "Feels like a completely different environment." People exchanged looks, but said nothing. Because everyone knew. Everyone saw it. He never mentioned Andy's name, but the absence was loud enough to fill the room. Emma, the content lead, pulled me aside afterward. "Feels better now, doesn't it?" "It does," I admitted. She hesitated. "You did what had to be done, even if nobody knows it but us." I didn't respond. Not with words, anyway. Of all the people affected by Andy and Mark's scheme, Johnny suffered the greatest blow, even though he survived it. That warning HR gave him stayed on his record. It wasn't damning. It wouldn't stop him from growing in the company, but it was still there, typed in some HR file, attached to his name, all because of a lie. And sometimes when I looked at him during our stand-ups, when he laughed or gave updates or cracked a dry joke, I'd feel that sting of anger again. He didn't deserve that. He deserved better. One afternoon, months after Andy's departure, I approached the office manager privately. "I want to ask something," I said, "about Johnny. His warning, is it permanent?" The office manager leaned back in his chair. "Technically, yes, but practically, not really. If he has no further issues for 6 months, it becomes irrelevant. And after a year, he said, it's generally ignored completely. Unless we're dealing with a pattern, which we're not. Johnny's one of our best." I nodded. It wasn't perfect justice. It wasn't erasure, but it was closure. Later that day, Johnny approached my desk. "You okay?" he asked. "I will be." He studied me for a moment. "You still thinking about them? About what happened?" I sighed. "Sometimes." He sat down. "And I'm still grateful. You don't know how much worse it could have been." I met his eyes. "You shouldn't have had to go through any of it." Johnny shrugged. "But we came out the other side. Stronger." He wasn't wrong, but something still burned inside me. A question I couldn't shake. People over the years have asked me, "Do you ever feel guilty for what you did to Mark and Andy?" The question always makes me pause. Not because I'm unsure of the answer, but because of how easily people misunderstand the situation. So let me say it the same way I've said it dozens of times before. I feel guilty that Johnny was wrongfully accused. I do not feel guilty about what happened to Mark. Mark chose to lie. Mark chose to weaponize race, a deeply serious issue, for personal gain. And Mark chose to join Andy in attacking innocent people. His downfall was the result of his choices. As for Andy, Andy's destruction wasn't something I orchestrated with elaborate traps or whispered rumors. All I did, literally all I did, was shine a light on the truth and let the company see him for who he really was. He destroyed himself, step by step, lie by lie, outburst by outburst. I didn't sabotage him. I didn't falsify claims. I didn't manipulate anyone. I simply told him something he couldn't handle. "I know what you did, and I won't forget." That sentence alone was enough to break him. Because guilt is corrosive. Fear is corrosive. And the knowledge that someone knows your deepest wrongdoing, that can shatter a man. I didn't take Andy down. He took himself down. Over the next year, our office thrived. Productivity skyrocketed. Collaboration became smooth and natural. The atmosphere grew light, warm even. Johnny eventually became a senior-level specialist with incredible recognition. Emma went on to lead larger divisions. My team became one of the highest performing in the company. Every now and then, when I'd pass the stairwell, the same spot where I caught Mark's visa call, I'd pause. Not for long, just a moment. A reminder of how things could have gone. How easily lives can be manipulated by selfish, insecure people. How close we came to losing something valuable. Someone valuable. and how justice, real justice, sometimes takes time. It isn't always loud. It isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes justice is a quiet process, a slow unraveling, a whisper in someone's ear that dismantles their entire world. Andy vanished from the industry. Seriously, vanished. He never appeared in another office, never popped up on LinkedIn, never resurfaced in SEO circles. It's almost as if the moment he left our office, he stopped existing professionally. And Mark? Word reached us that he struggled to find stable work in Dubai. Visa issues lingered. Finances were tight. He sent a few panicked emails to former co-workers asking if the company would reconsider sponsoring him. They didn't. He stopped emailing soon after. Call it karma. Call it consequences. Call it poetic justice. Whatever you call it, I call it fair. Because there's a rule I've lived by ever since this happened. You don't mess with my friends, my family, or my team. Ever. Standing up for people who trust you. Protecting the ones who work with loyalty and integrity. That's not optional. It's a responsibility. Andy and Mark try to break us, me and Johnny, because they assumed we were just obstacles. Pawns. Expendable. They never realized they were attacking a team built on actual respect. Actual skill. Actual loyalty. Their downfall wasn't engineered. It was earned. And if I had the chance to go back and do it all again, I wouldn't change a single thing.